Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Spanish at A-level, my mock and how I revised for it. So my mock this year was the AS paper for 2018 for paper 2, which was listening, reading and translation. So this is some general advice relating to those sort of 3 topics and Spanish at A-level more generally. And overall for the mock, I went into the mock with like a calm, quite positive mindset, and I think that's really helped how I came out of the exam and generally how I did, because I wasn't panicking, so it was much easier to focus than it was for like literature, because I was really stressed about it. That was the day before, that was the first one I sat. So tip number 1 is practice questions, which might not seem as obvious as like maths or science, like doing a practice paper, but I think because we did a practice AS paper in class, we started it in the lesson because we did the listing part in the lesson, and then we had like an hour to finish the rest of it, and like we could take it home and do it. So we did one practice paper as a class, but I went on my example website and I did at least 10 translations, because that was one of the things I was really worried about in my mock, because I would say translations were my weakest, and that has paid off because I haven't actually got the paper back, but I was expecting to by Friday, so that's why I started film Spanish or English, because I already had my English one back. And I know that I got 19 out of 20 on the Spanish to English translation. Practice questions definitely like #1 thing for helping with Spanish in the sense of like exam technique and stuff. And like linking to this, how I did tips 2 and 3 actually. So tip number 2 is to do translations, and what I did with the translation in the mock was it was the first thing I did the Spanish to English translation first, then the English to Spanish, and then I went to do the other 2 parts of the paper and left it right until like I think I gave myself 20 minutes at the end to go through all of the listening and reading stuff that I needed to check, and to make sure that I was happy with my translations. So that really helped me, because it meant that I had time to reflect on the translations as how I've done them, whereas if I'd done them right at the end I wouldn't have had that chance. So that was tip number 2. Tip number 3, I'm less sure as to how effective this was, but what I did with my listening part of the paper was I went through the whole, like each question I'd like pause after I thought I'd heard what I'd heard, and I would write down, but I made notes around the question before I answered it. And once I'd finished listening to the whole question part, because like each question was split into like different bits, like there was like question 3 had like 4 parts to it. So once I listened to the whole of question 3, the listening part for it, I went through what I had written down around the box that you need to fill in, and I used that to construct my answers, and then I listened to it again to check whether I thought I was on the right track. And I think my listening was one of the weaker parts of my mock from the feedback we've had so far, because we've done like a lesson where we went through the mock. Tip number 4 is vocab, which is more of a traditional revision thing than what I've talked about for like the last 2 points, because they've much more so been exam technique and how I answered the paper, which is probably more of a personal thing to me. So vocab is one of the most important parts of Spanish. As much as everyone hates learning words, just words, it is super important. So what I did to learn my vocab was I went through my notes, because I've been making notes throughout the year. We've got sheets, and anything that I'd highlighted when I'd studied it originally went into my Quizlet, and I did this for theme 1, which 3 units. I did this right at the end of theme 1, which wasn't the best way of going about it. I should have done it while I was going through it, but I didn't really think about how I was going to revise vocab. So all these words went into a themed Quizlet. So like on my Quizlet I have Spanish theme 1, and then I have in that families and citizenship, youth trends and education and employment opportunities, which are the 3 units of theme 1. And within those I have my vocab. So some of them are actual words that are like specifically linked to the topic. So like la tauromaquia is bullfighting. It's like the art of bullfighting. Whereas there are other words like, I'm trying to think of an example now of something like tan pronto is soon, because that's something that I picked up from one of the units but I didn't know, so that ended up in the Quizlet, even though really that was like something that could have been its own separate useful connecting phrases and stuff, and like words that you know, useful words. And then with learning these, I used the I used flashcards on Quizlet and the learn features. Like, I'd go through them because it would give me choose between 4 options, write the English and then write the Spanish as the last one, and then it went into like, you know this. And then each time I went through each unit, I would go through the flashcards first and star any of them that I wasn't certain of from English to Spanish, because that's the one that I struggle with more. Because whereas like I know words from Spanish to English much clear, like I'm much more confident with Spanish to English than English to Spanish, which I think reflects in my translation as well. So Spanish to English, definitely the strongest of my skills in the subjects. So yeah, if you study a language, the chances are you do use Quizlet for your vocab and stuff, and if you don't, I would really recommend it because it's super useful. Which brings me to tip number 5, which is the final tip, and that is grammar, which as an English student, well, much more so as a language student, is relevant like so much. So grammar's like the one thing that links all 3 of my levels, because even in literature it's still is relevant, just not as like not in all of the questions, whereas like, and to be fair, not even in language, it's just we need to know more detail about it in language. And then in Spanish, obviously grammar is like way of communicating, like translation, I need to understand tenses. So grammar has a lot of importance in my A-level, I would say, specifically Spanish. So my Quizlet has a few grammar things on it, so it's got like it's got 5 verbs on it that are like need to know, like basic verbs, and it's got all of the conjugations of those as like just as a way of putting them all in one place. I think that's why I did it. But the majority of my tenses revision and practice has been on Languages Online, which I would definitely recommend. And it's like loads of like exercises where you fill in like the verb with like you have the verb and then you have to conjugate it to make it fit the gap. So like the literally all the tenses on there, and it's so useful because it's like there's loads of resources through it. So that's been a really important part of my revision. So yeah, that is my 5 tips for Spanish A level, or probably Spanish AS level, because we've only covered like the AS topic so far. We've started theme 4, which in Spanish is like Franco Spain, which is honestly very, very hard hitting, because it's like, you know, for nearly 40 odd years this was like people's reality, and you know it's dystopian. It's like almost dystopian in nature, like it's frightening, but also it's like it's something that we didn't, you know, it's something we've never been taught about in school, whereas like, you know, because I did history at GCSE, we did about like Elizabethan England, which has been literally like all of the stuff I've did in history at GCSE has been useful in English Lit or language, or one of them. So that's been really nice, being able to use the things that I'd learned and hadn't really used in the exam. But yeah, I would really recommend doing a language at A-level, because even though it's definitely my hardest A-level in the sense of it's my weakest, it's what I struggle with the most, I do like, it's very rewarding when I can read things and I can understand them without like properly like not thinking about it, because obviously I have to think about it still, but like without truly comprehending what I'm doing, like that's such a cool thing. So even if you don't do language at A-level, I would recommend trying to pick one up, because Like the statistics of people in this country that speak more than one language, that can read and write more than one language, is like 30-something%. Why did I read about that earlier? I think one of my friends from Unique retweeted something about it, so I just went and looked it up, and the percentage of people in the UK between the ages of 18 and 35 that read and write in more than one language is 31%. And as a comparison, most of the other countries in Europe are like 70%, and Spain was 85%, I think. Probably should have checked like what the other ones were more clearly, but yeah, the fact that in the UK it's only 31% is quite shocking. But also, if I think about the number of people I know that are doing languages at A-level that speak other languages, it's like it is reflective in the number of students that I know that do a language. That's like, it's sad, but also I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was as to how much lower the figure in the UK is compared to the rest of Europe. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe and comment below opinions, suggestions, and also if you're interested in having more of an input in my channel, go follow my Instagram. It's linked on my channel. So, and because like I've been posting like polls and stuff, and I think I'm going to post like a questions thing, because I kind of want to do a Q&A. If you think doing a Q&A is a good idea, let me know in the comments below, please. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye guys.